This is a continuation of my How Do You Define Love video. For part 2, I will give you 2 examples on why I think my mom's best friend is the weirdest Asian I have ever met in my life. But first, I would like to start with what I call my mom's best friend, and I call her MèiMei. This is the pinyin, the English pronunciation of these 2 characters, meaning younger sister. It's MeiMei. But I say it with a Siamese accent, so I say MèiMei. And yes, this is a chopstick. The reason I go and call her MèiMei is because that's what my mom calls her. Ever since they were little kids, that was her nickname for her. Because she's the youngest of 6 children, so she's like the littlest of the children. And everyone calls her MèiMei. So I will refer to her as that. Instead of just calling her my mom's best friend or my friend, I wanted to go with an actual name. So whenever I say MèiMei, I'm referring to my mom's best friend and the one that took care of me when I was in China. Over the 6 months that I got to better know MèiMei, every day I inched closer to understanding love. And then a light bulb went off in my head. This is why I was so depressed throughout my whole life? It's because I never saw love? Before going to China, I spent a couple of years trying to figure out why I just always wanted to jump. Ever since the age of 10. I thought it was the years of loneliness. The disconnection I had with constantly being surrounded by white people. MèiMei was the first person that ever complimented me. That ever said, yes, I'm good enough. That I'm smart, that I'm clever, talented. And then for me to believe her, her words meant that much to me. All my life, I never felt good enough. I always felt worthless, insignificant. It's why I buried myself in work, trying to feel something good about myself. I needed the good grade to tell myself that I was worth something. MèiMei was the first person that ever saw me. I got so used to disappearing over the years that I was a little bit floored every single time she paid attention to me. At first, I was in shock. I didn't know how to react. Every time she said something good about me, I stayed silent, not knowing what to say. I stared at her wide-eyed, not knowing what was going on. For years, people always just ignored me, rejected me, glossed over that I was even there. I barely interacted with my parents. They were always at work. I didn't communicate well with them. For the most part, I just liked walking away, disappearing, numbing. MèiMei was the first person that ever tried to engage me. Every time I said no, she didn't listen. One example is the mooncake episode. When I went to China, it was September. And in the Chinese culture, we have this holiday where we celebrate with mooncakes. It's this sort of Chinese pastry where there's red bean inside. It's sweet. There's also a savory version where there's meat inside. And I've only had the savory version once in my life, and that's because of MèiMei. One day I was with MèiMei accompanying her on her errands, and we passed a vendor that was selling one of those savory pastries, mooncakes. And MèiMei stopped and asked me if I wanted one. And I said, no, I'm okay. She asked me, have you ever tried one? No. Then do you want one? No, that's okay. And then she paused. And then asked the vendor, 2 please. And I was like, what? I said, no, why are you, what the? And then she handed me the pastry and said, try it. And then I did, and I was like, whoa, this is delicious. And if she listened to me when I said no, I would have never tasted that mooncake. And that was delicious. Very, very tasty. I'm just so used to always going into deprivation mode that I say no automatically without ever thinking. MèiMei was the first person that saw how bad of a habit that was and then told me so to my face. As I grew up, for the most part, my parents didn't care how flawed I was getting. They'd never noticed. They were just busy always working, and I was just always left home alone. MèiMei was the reason I learned the word Guān Xīn. It means to be concerned or to care about someone. And the day I understood that word was the day I forever and then understood love. For most of my life, I've been very independent because I couldn't rely on people. I don't know how to go and say I need help, I'm in trouble. And MeiMei was the first person that forced me not to hide, that said that if you are in trouble, you should go and say something and I will help you out. For 2 weeks, I was having issues with my internet, and MeiMei asked me how it was going, if it was getting any better. And when I said no, she went and problem solved and tried to help me out to get the connection better. And eventually it got fixed. Apparently in China you can't go and look at English sites. But that was the moment in the situation where she went and said those words, Guān Xīn. She said, 我们不会不关心你啊. Meaning, we would never go and not care about you. If you're ever in trouble, we will always help you out. And that's what she meant by Guān Xīn. She was the first person that ever cared. Like, cared enough to go and ask me if I was okay. And if I wasn't okay, that she would actually help me out. She wanted to help me out. There are many other examples of how kind she was to me, but those two moments are the ones that stand out in my mind the most. They were so small, but the effect on me was so much. Because that was the first time I ever saw love. I was starved of it. But when I saw it, I saw it like it was everything. Every time I said I didn't want anything, or when I didn't ask for help, she offered. She would call me up to come over and have dinner or hang out, knowing that if she didn't ask me, I wouldn't have asked to come over. It's because that's what I've been doing for years. I always just walk away from people. I was so used to being ignored, accepting the detriment that it was doing to my character. MeiMei was the first person that said that was bad, that was not okay, and that I should change. I have so much to say about her, of how she changed my life, how she affected it, but I can't sum it up in just this one video. So for now, I would like to just say that MeiMei was the first person that showed me there was a different type of Asian. She challenged the perception I always held about Asians, that they were stuck up, arrogant, liars, negative, critical, overbearing, horrible listeners. So many unloving things. MeiMei wasn't like that. She was good-natured, truthful, laid back, non-judgmental. She would ask me questions, ask about my day, have conversations. She was fun, cool to be around. She didn't dwell in the negativity that so many Asians I know do. Knowing her made me stop hating Asians. It made me hate myself. I didn't know I hated myself. But looking back, that's how I felt. Everything that was wrong with me, I always associated with being Asian. And in my next video, I will explain this notion.